What if nothing could move? No doors opening, no swings going back and forth. Everything stuck in place. That's exactly what would happen if there were no forces. But what exactly is a force? It's simple. It's just a push or a pull. Although we can't see them, pushes and pulls control almost everything around us. Let's start with pushes. This happens when you move something away from you. When you press a door to close it, tap your tablet screen, or kick a football, that's a push force. Now let's talk about pulls. This happens when you bring something towards you. When you open a drawer, you pull the handle to slide it open. When you pull a heavy suitcase, you use force to move it towards you. Ever struggled with a stuck door? You pull harder to open it. Think about tying your shoelaces. You pull the laces tight so they stay secure and keep your shoes on your feet. Every movement starts with a force. Forces don't just make things move, they can also change the shape of objects. Think about a car tire. When you pump air into it, the push of the air stretches the rubber, making it expand. Pulling can change shapes too. When you pull on a plastic bag too hard, it stretches and might even tear. Some objects are designed to change shape on purpose. A metal drinks can is crushed with a push, and that makes it easier to recycle, while a seatbelt tightens up when it's pulled to keep you safe. Forces control how we move, play, and interact with the world around us. Forces are everywhere. You use them all the time, often without even thinking about it. When you zip up your coat, you're pulling the zip to close it. When you shut a car door, you push it closed. When you pull open the fridge door, you're using a force too. Even writing with a pen, you're pushing down on the paper and pulling the pen across as you form letters. Forces are part of everything we do, from getting dressed to using everyday objects. Check out the forces playlist or our next video on contact forces and the video after that on non-contact forces. Leave a comment if you learned something new. Push that like button and subscribe so you don't miss the next video. Every time your finger touches a screen, you're using a contact force. But have you ever wondered why your finger doesn't just slip right off the screen? Well, that's because of friction, a force that happens when two surfaces rub against each other. Friction happens because even surfaces that look smooth actually have tiny bumps. When two things touch, these bumps catch on each other, making it harder for them to slide past. It's like when two pieces of sandpaper rub together. That's friction. So when you use a touchscreen, you do need some friction so your finger doesn't just slip everywhere. But too much friction would make your finger get stuck. That's why screens are made to have just the right amount of bumpiness. Where do we want lots of friction? On your shoes. The bumpy pattern on the bottom helps grip the floor so that you don't slip. Bicycle brakes need friction to stop the wheels. And rubber gloves help you hold wet dishes without dropping them. But sometimes we want less friction. That's why we put oil on bike chains, so they move smoothly. Ice skates glide because there's little friction between the metal blade and the ice. And slides at the playground are smooth so you can zoom down quickly. We can make more friction by making surfaces rougher, like adding rough bits to garden gloves so that tools don't slip out of our hands, or making car tyres made out of rough rubber so that cars don't slip on the road. Water resistance is another contact force. It's when water pushes against you, causing friction between the surface of the water and the surface of your skin. Have you tried running in a swimming pool? It's much harder than running on land because the water pushes back. Air resistance works the same way. When you ride your bike really fast at the park, you can feel the air pushing against you. Or maybe when you hold your umbrella up on a windy day. Air resistance is why racing cyclists bend low, to get less air pushing against them. Don't forget to check out our free worksheet on contact forces in the description below. You can try some fun experiments at home as well to see friction in action. And make sure to watch our next video where we'll explore amazing non-contact forces like magnetism and gravity, forces that work without touching at all. Let's look at 3 non-contact forces: electrostatic force, gravity, and magnetism. Gravity is an important non-contact force that we all experience. It's the force that pulls everything down towards the earth without touching it. If you jump into the air, gravity pulls you back down, even when nothing is touching you. Have you ever dropped your tablet on the floor and watched it fall straight to the ground, even though nothing's touching it? That's because gravity is a non-contact force. It pulls objects down without needing to touch them. And did you know that there's less gravity on the moon than on Earth? So when an astronaut jumps, it takes longer for gravity to pull them back down. A second type of non-contact force involves electricity. We can create tiny amounts of electrostatic force when we rub certain materials together. They become electrically charged, and this is called static. Once an object is charged, it can attract or repel other objects without touching them. When your jumper rubs against your clothes or skin, it builds up a static charge. This happens because tiny electric charges move between the materials. If enough charge builds up, after you take off your jumper, small pieces of fluff or dust might suddenly be attracted to your jumper. When you pull cling film off the roll, it rubs against itself, and this builds up a static charge. The rubbing creates an invisible charge on the film. Once it's charged, the cling film can stick to plates, bowls, or even your hands without touching them first. This happens because the charge creates a non-contact force that pulls the film towards the objects without actually touching them. That's why cling film sometimes seems to jump onto a surface. The third non-contact force we're going to look at is magnetic force. When you hold 2 magnets near each other, they might snap together or push away without ever touching. The north pole of one magnet will attract or pull the south pole of another magnet towards it. But if you try to put 2 north poles together, they repel or push away from each other. Magnetic force is a non-contact force that can both push and pull. Remember, all these non-contact forces work without touching. Gravity only pulls things, while magnets and electrostatic forces can both push and pull. They all work on objects from a distance. In our next video, we'll look at magnetic materials, and don't forget you can check out our forces playlist here. Not all magnets are created equal. Some can barely hold a paperclip, while others can lift cars. But why? What makes some magnets stronger than others? And can we make them even stronger? Well, let's find out. Did you know that dropping a magnet, heating it up, or even leaving it in extreme cold can make a magnet weaker? So remember, magnets work best when they're looked after properly. And while magnets can slowly weaken over time by themselves, most stay strong for years if handled carefully. So what does make a magnet stronger? There are three main things: the size, the material, and the shape. Firstly, size. Bigger magnets are usually stronger. Material. Some metals are more magnetic. Iron is more magnetic than nickel, so an iron magnet is usually stronger than a nickel magnet. The strongest everyday magnets are made from neodymium, which is a special type of metal that makes an incredibly powerful magnet. And thirdly, shape. The more pole area exposed, the more strong the magnet is. Magnets are strongest at their poles, the north and south ends. The shape of a magnet changes how much of its poles can touch an object, affecting how strong it seems. Let's look at the different types of magnets and how their shape affects their strength. Firstly, bar magnets. The poles are small and far apart, so they're weaker for lifting, but good for experiments. Horseshoe magnets. These are basically bar magnets bent into a U shape, and this brings the poles closer together. This concentrates the magnetic field and makes them stronger for lifting. Disc magnets are flat with wide poles, and this makes them strong for attracting flat objects like fridge doors and speaker parts. Ball magnets have very small poles, so they aren't great for lifting, but they can be very strong for their size. This is because they're often made from highly magnetic materials like neodymium, which has a very strong magnetic field. So even though they have small poles, their entire surface can interact with magnetic fields from other magnets. They're used for magnetic toys and for magnetic jewelry. And finally, cylinder magnets. They can hold onto objects well. This makes them useful in machines and even medical implants. The strongest magnets are actually made using electricity. And this is when we wrap a wire around an iron nail and connect it to a battery. This creates an electromagnet that can be turned on and off. Magnets aren't just fun, they're useful in our everyday lives. They keep fridge doors shut, help speakers make sound, and even power machines and trains. If you think magnetic strength is super, hit the like button. And next time, we'll find out how magnets help us find our way around when we're lost. So check out the video here. Did you know that over 2,000 years ago, people in ancient China discovered a rock that could move things without touching them? This rock is called lodestone, a naturally magnetic material. When people placed it near small pieces of metal, the metal jumped towards it, almost like magic. But this wasn't magic, it was a non-contact force called magnetism. We don't have to find lodestone to get magnets, we can actually make our own. Some metals, like iron, nickel and cobalt, can turn into magnets when we stroke them with a strong magnet. This works because rubbing the magnet lines up tiny invisible areas inside the metal, making it temporarily magnetic. Not all metals are attracted to magnets. For example, gold, silver and aluminium are non-magnetic materials. You cannot pick them up with a magnet. Some other everyday objects are also non-magnetic, like plastic, wood, glass, and fabric. Magnets won't affect these at all. You can test this out at home. If you want to see which objects are magnetic, try this. Find a fridge magnet or any other small magnet. Collect different objects like spoons, coins, keys, paper clips, or foil and anything else around the house. Test each object by bringing the magnet close. Does it stick? If yes, it's magnetic. Fun fact, not all coins are magnetic. In the United Kingdom, for example, 1 penny and 2 penny coins made after 1992 contain steel, so they do stick to magnets. Older ones won't. Why don't you try it out for yourself? Magnets aren't just for experiments, they help keep fridge doors shut, make headphones work, and they can even store data on bank cards. They're everywhere in our daily lives. In our next video, we're going to find out what makes some magnets stronger than others. You can check it out here. Have you ever been lost with no idea which way to go? Imagine being lost hundreds of years ago. No phones, no GPS, no maps. But people still found their way, thanks to something incredible: magnets. In this video, we're going to find out how magnets have been guiding us for thousands of years. Over 2,000 years ago, people in ancient China discovered that a special rock called lodestone could move things without touching them. Lodestone is a naturally magnetic rock, and when it's placed on a smooth surface, it would slowly turn and point in the same direction every time. This was the world's first documented compass. Sailors and explorers used compasses to find their way across land and sea, long before modern technology. But how does a compass actually work? A compass is simply a magnet that can spin freely. The tip of the needle always points north. But why? The reason compasses work is that Earth itself is like a giant magnet. In the last video, we learned that some metals are magnetic. Deep inside our planet, melted iron and nickel move around and pull on the compass needle, making it point north. Magnets always line up with magnetic fields, so when you let a small magnet move freely, like the needle in a compass, it automatically lines up with Earth's magnetic field and points towards the North Pole. You can make a simple compass at home. Ask your teacher to download the easy, free worksheet in the comments and give a thumbs up if you tried it out. You can also check out the complete forces and magnets playlist here.